Welcome. My name is Katie Bradford Osborne. I am the founder and curator of Roaring Artist Gallery. We are a fully virtual art gallery that shows exclusively the work of women identifying and non-binary artists. And we're here today for the artist talk for the headliner of our scene exhibition, Julie Atkinson. We've had Julie before a few times in the gallery, and it's so wonderful, Julie, to have your work in this exhibition. So I'm so excited that you're here with us today. I'm going to read your bio, and then I'm going to hand it right over to you. Julie Atkinson began painting after working in business and then as a lawyer. What began as an impromptu purchase of a set of watercolor paints quickly grew into a passion for exploring the human figure and emotions through the colors and textures of oil paint. Her art education comes from self-directed online courses as well as from local community centers. She is deeply grateful to all of the artists she met in these communities for sharing their knowledge and offering their advice and encouragement. In 2022, Julie's work has been on display in the Art of the African Diaspora exhibition at the Richmond Art Center in Richmond, California, as part of an AOTAD satellite exhibition at Slate Contemporary Art Gallery in Oakland, California, and in the Black Creativity Juried Art exhibition at the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago, Illinois. Her first solo show, Always, was exhibited at Our Studios in Oakland, California in May 2022. Julie lives with her husband and 2 children in the San Francisco Bay Area. All right, I'll hand it over to you.
Great, thank you, Katie. Thank you for organizing this exhibit. I'm excited to be here. Thank you to everyone who's watching this talk and to everyone who will be watching the recording later. I'm going to share my screen. I've got kind of a presentation put together, so let me take a second and do that. And yeah, so I really loved the theme of this exhibit because I feel like feeling seen is just so powerful. We decide what we want to wear and how we want people to look at us, but there's always something I think that's still a little bit hidden or that we keep private, that maybe we also still want someone to notice in us and to see and to really love. So I think the topic of this exhibit really spoke to my heart. I think particularly because my work focuses on the figure and on portraits. You know, I am asking a lot, what do I want the viewer to see? How much do I want to show? And how is someone going to connect to this painting based on those decisions and what I make? So just to introduce myself, I live in the San Francisco Bay Area. I live with my husband of 15 years and my 2 children who are 12 and 10. I haven't always been an artist. In fact, I wouldn't have even called myself an artist probably until a couple of years ago. And if you'd asked me 10 years ago if I would ever be here talking about my art, I would have just said, "You're nuts. I don't know even know what you're talking about." It would have never occurred to me that I would be in this position one day. I didn't do that much art as a child, beyond just kind of coloring and drawing like many children do. Certainly no one suggested that I had any talent for it, so it was not really on my radar. But when I was a senior in high school, I took a drawing class and I absolutely loved it. I took it kind of on a whim. I was a senior, I needed something in my schedule. And when I sat down in the class, I loved the people I was with. I loved just the feeling of watching something come to life on the paper. As I was drawing and rendering, if it was a bottle or a skull or whatever, just seeing it over time take shape and take form just really struck me. But I didn't do anything with that after that class. I don't think I really knew what it would look like to do art as a career. So I went to college, I studied political science, I learned to speak Russian, and eventually I went to law school and practiced law for 10 years. But during all that time, there was still, like in the back of my mind, this sort of gnawing creative impulse. I wanted to write or do something, but I didn't know what. And it always just felt very amorphous and intangible. And I was like, that's probably just for other people. I don't really know how to make that into my life. Then my daughter was born in 2012, and we were living down the street from a bead shop. And one night I was up, with the baby in the middle of the night, as I often was, and it kind of got in my head that I wanted to make jewelry. And I started scrolling on my phone. I'd be holding the baby in one arm and scrolling on my phone with the other, trying to figure out what that might look like. And eventually, just on a whim at 2 a.m, hit buy and bought some supplies, and eventually started selling jewelry on Etsy. So once that door was open to creativity, I think just it opened the floodgates. I was working near the public library in San Francisco, and during my lunch break, I would go to the arts and crafts section, and I really checked out nearly every book over the course of 2 years in that section and read about anything and everything you could possibly make. I was weaving tapestry. I wanted to make stained glass windows. I was obsessed. And I would watch videos online. I would at work go back and forth between writing a legal memo over here and learning how to make something or paint something, on my other screen. So that job, that legal job ended, and I was staying at home with my kids and still selling jewelry at this point. But I was sort of at the point in the library where I was now reading books about painting. And, again, sort of got in my head, hey, why don't you just get like a set of watercolors? It's $20, get some paper, just try and figure it out. So I did. And from there, I started doing acrylic painting. I started looking at oils, and it was sort of snowballing. So some of my first paintings were of my children, because that's what I had around me on my phone were countless photos of my kids. And so I started practicing by just painting them. And this was probably around 2018, 2019 that I did this work. But then in late 2020, I kind of landed probably on the body of work that I'll be showing you a little bit later, and what I've been continuing to work on. Obviously 2020, everything shut down, and I had a lot more time to paint, to think, to reflect. In particular, I became very introspective, sort of processing the reaction to George Floyd's murder and how I was experiencing that in a predominantly white community. And I was listening to a podcast, and I heard a poem by Lucille Clifton that really jumped out and grabbed my attention. And it's really become kind of the touchstone for a lot of my art practice. So I have that up on the screen here, and it says, "Listen, children, keep this in the place you have for keeping always. Keep it always. We have never hated Black. Listen, we have been ashamed, hopeless, tired, mad, but always, always we loved us. We've always loved each other, children, always. Pass it on." And this poem gave me a really tremendous sense of being seen. It spoke to really everything that I was feeling in that moment. And I started to paint more figures of Black women, playing around with different levels of abstraction and the shapes that the bodies could form, and how, what kind of emotions, what kind of things I could convey through those shapes. Here are two examples. The figures, when I paint them, I don't set them in a particularly specific place. The landscapes are generally kind of generalized, fantasized. It's kind of a dreamscape, I suppose. I like to leave some space for interpretation and space for the viewer to kind of bring their own context around where they are, where that person might be, and what they're doing. And I'll get into a few more specific examples later of that. These are just some pictures from my studio. My studio is in my backyard. A good friend of mine helped me put it together, and it's kind of my happy place. It's got a lot of natural light, which I like. It's got a back door that opens up, so I can really do a lot of indoor, outdoor work. Sometimes I just sort of drag the easel right into that door space and have the door open so I can be both outside and kind of have the conveniences of inside at the same time. So to just go back for a second to kind of my final sort of transition from being a lawyer to being an artist. I joined an online community for artists a couple years ago, which was organized by a woman who is an artist as well as a life coach. And she was really insistent that, you know, we are all artists, whether we are showing our work, selling our work, painting every day or not, that it's really all about mindset. And she had this one line that really has stuck with me. And she said to us one day, if you want to argue for your limitations, you can have them. Every time we would say, well, I can't do this because, you know, I don't have an MFA, or I can't do this because I don't live in a place with a lot of galleries near me, or I can't whatever. She'd say, you know what? If you want to argue for your limitations, you can have them. And, you know, I took that statement, I said, her point was, we're the ones standing in our own way. If we want to keep telling ourselves the 100 reasons why we're not artists, then so be it. But we could also just let it go and just do the thing, you know, go out and be the artist. And so that also really stuck with me. And I think about that, you know, when I'm applying for an exhibition or trying, you know, something new, that, hey, I can tell myself, you know, 1,000 different reasons why this isn't going to work, but I could also just step out of my own way and go ahead and be the artist that I want to be. And kind of, I really credit her with helping to transition me from kind of the mindset of, oh, this is just a hobby, to, hey, you can actually do this. Why not? So getting into some of my work, this one, which is in the scene exhibition, is called Me at 43. I titled it as a self-portrait, although it's not actually a self-portrait. But I did feel like it was capturing the feelings that I was having at this age, at 43, as a mother, at kind of a period of transition in my life, sort of a reflection on what it means to be at this particular moment. There's sort of a sense, I think, of being both protective with her leg up, but also a little bit of confidence with one leg out. And I don't know, for me, that this felt like this was kind of where I was at. It was very much I'm not quite sure, but, you know, we're going for it anyway, kind of mentality. I think there's also maybe a little bit of a feeling of being trapped with the kind of the darkness on one side and the light on the other. But as she's moving toward it, and just kind of in a transitional reflective space at this age, kind of midlife age. So this next piece I've called About That Thing. And this title was also inspired by another poem by Lucille Clifton that has really spoke to me. And I put that here on the slide as well. And I'll just read it. It says, I'm running into a new year, and the old years blow back like a wind that I catch in my hair, like strong fingers, like all my old promises. And it will be hard to let go of what I said to myself about myself when I was 16 and 26 and 36, even 36. But I'm running into a new year, and I beg what I love and I leave to forgive me. And so the title of this piece, About That Thing, is a reference to the line, it will be hard to let go of what I said to myself about myself. And I think like many women, many of us, we have, you know, a strong internal commentary, running commentary sometimes on our lives and what we say to ourselves. And we carry that through our life, but hopefully we can also, you know, learn to forgive ourselves and move on and take care of ourselves. So I tried to put some of that into the painting. I think this piece is also a good example of what I've been doing with hair, and hair texture is a really important component of a lot of the pieces that I do. I like to paint hair that is big, that is textured. I just use the black paint straight out of the tube, squeeze it onto a palette knife and apply it just straight away. It often makes it a focal point. And I think, you know, insofar as my painting, the themes really focus a lot on kind of self-esteem and confidence, particularly as a Black woman, hair is a very integral part of that. And so it's become a really important part of my painting and of those work. Oops. Okay. Here are a few other examples of where I've been using textured hair. This is actually one piece. It's actually usually 6 squares. They're 12 by 12, and I kind of present them as a grid of different women. And I wanted to kind of create a community of women who were both kind of anonymous in the sense that their faces, I just wanted to suggest more through shadows as opposed to you know, being more detailed, but then their hair being different as well. And so it's just this kind of a community of Black women. And I titled it right after the Lucille Clifton poem, Always. And just wanted to show these women just showing up as they are and who they are, both unique as well as in community with each other. This next piece, I kind of left the door open on the title and just called it Untitled Woman. I painted it kind of towards the end of 2020, going into 2021. And, you know, all the feelings of that time, all the things that were happening. And, you know, I wanted to just convey the sense of a woman really was just trying to break free of the canvas, you know, what part of her arm is cut off, hopefully as if she's coming off of the painting. And I left the background white, or painted it white, because I wanted there was so much happening that year that it almost felt hard to pinpoint like what was the cause of this woman's distress. It could be so many things. And I wanted to sort of leave it open for people who are looking at it to maybe see themselves and project their own feelings, their own background onto it. One person commented to me that they were struck by how her hair is kind of up and done, suggesting that maybe she's sort of put together, but at the same time, she's in this feeling of, you know, oh my gosh, I can't handle this anymore. And, you know, given the time period during which I was painting this in kind of late 2020, 2021, I think that is a good observation and something that's really in this piece. So my work is in water-soluble oils, or water miscible oils are also called, which basically are oil paints, but you can clean them up with water and mix them with water in order to thin them. And I've really enjoyed playing around with that property of it because I can start each piece with a really thin, watery application of paint and get some really cool effects with the way that it might drip or blend together. And you can see some of that in the lower right-hand corner of this painting, where I was using sort of an orange and a little bit of pinkish drips, as well as at the top of the painting, I really just kind of kept turning the canvas and letting the water drip in different places. And then from there, kind of start to let that drive some of the design decisions and focal point decisions, and, you know, which areas do I just will not want to touch. Even from that first application of paint, I just loved the way that the yellow and orange and a little bit of pink at the bottom blended together, and said, okay, let me kind of build around that. Let me start with that and come up with the rest of the design from there. Having her look away from and showing her back is something else that I've been exploring in some of my paintings. For me, it's the idea of this woman, she's just finding a moment of peace. She's sitting on a rock, she's looking out at these beautiful sunflowers, and her space doesn't include anyone else. She doesn't need to invite anyone into this moment with her. And as the viewer, you just have to kind of sit behind her, and you can, engage in the same view, and you can share in her moment, but you don't actually get to engage with her, because she's enjoying that moment on her own. I did something similar in this piece that I call Sunrise. And this one really came together around hair and as well as body size. And, I think, again, when you talk about, self-esteem in women, I think body size is absolutely part of that conversation. And so I wanted to make sure that, that I am painting women, not so much because of the classical Greek, oh, this woman's body is, this work of art, but that, this woman's body is art. Not because of, a male gaze, but because just of who she is. She's got beautiful curves, beautiful hair. And I wanted to set her in a place that, at least for me, is one of the most sort of peaceful, calming places. I love going to the beach, and the beach at sunrise, the beach at sunset. It's a little bit cliched, but it's also, I think, very identifiable as a place of beauty and calm. And I wanted to situate this woman, this larger figured woman, even in that. And she's not looking at you for approval. She's not looking at you for, acceptance or whatever. She's just very content in herself, to enjoy this beautiful moment. And so I wanted to really create that association. So more recently, in the past couple of months, I've been doing some work with cold wax medium, and that's something that it's an oil paint medium that you mix in with the paint, and it creates kind of a waxy, thick texture, and you can apply it to your paper or like wood panel or whatever, and then scrape it back. And so you can create these interesting layering effects. And that's how I created a lot of the backgrounds kind of here and over here, is by, first putting down one color, you kind of let it maybe semi-dry, and then put down another color, let that dry, scrape back some of it in different places. You can scribble into it and whatnot, and create some really fun backgrounds. So I wanted to try that with and incorporate some figures, and just kind of titled these after some affirmations. I guess it was really just having fun with some of these pieces. So just looking to that, I suppose. And then some of the last things just wanted to show you are just some pieces I've done in colored pencil, watercolor, kind of a mixed media. Again, they're more detailed than my paintings for sure, but I still try and capture the same idea of being in sort of a dream space, with much more, fantastical types of backgrounds, and just less of a realism sense, except for the woman's face is much more realistic, but her setting is much more of a dream space. So that is all I have. Please stay in touch. I have a website, julieatkinsonart.com. I'm on Instagram at juliecreating, or you can just email me at juliecreating@gmail.com. Yeah, love to talk about art and all those things. So, you can check out my work, and yeah, I'm happy to take any questions or comments or anything like that. I will stop my sharing.
Well, thank you so much, Julie. That was so wonderful. Good to see what you're doing and to hear your inspiration behind it. Let's see. Do we have any questions or comments?
I just want to say thank you. It was so moving and beautiful to see. I mean, I know your story, but to see you talk about it and to hear the inspiration and to read the poems and to connect those beautiful words to the art that you've created is really inspiring. And I'm looking at the print that I just ordered and framed of the sunflowers. And so it's all the more meaningful and beautiful now to know what went into it. So thank you. You're an inspiration, and you're a beautiful person, and I feel really lucky to know you, and so glad that you're sharing your art with the world.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, I joined late, but I echo everything that was just said. It was really, really interesting to hear some of your thoughts behind the paintings. It's lovely.
Yeah.
I did have one question for you,
Yeah.
Julie. I was looking at the dates as paintings were sort of going through, and it
Mhm.
seems like in the last year, the most recent work that you've done, the backgrounds are becoming more, well, larger, more important. The figures are maybe becoming a little smaller. Does that have any meaning, do you feel like, to what you're doing?
I've been trying to paint larger. So my first paintings were definitely more on the like 16 by 20 size. And now more recently, I've kind of liked 36 by 36, 30 by 40. I've been trying to play with just putting more of a setting. So moving away from less of more of a portrait emphasis to like, where is she and what is she doing, coming out maybe a little bit more into the world. I'm starting to experiment. I didn't show any because I'm still kind of working with it, with adding more figures. So having that larger size and making the figure smaller. I think I'm kind of maybe in my mind getting ready to starting to add a few other people into it and explore what that means now to kind of paint within this theme, but paint with the idea of community as well.
Love that. That's really
Yeah.
great. I loved the way that you described how your figures, especially in like the sunflower piece, how your figure is interacting with her space, as opposed to how we're interacting with the figure. That was really fascinating to me. I loved how you described that.
Well, thank
And
you.
yeah, I'm excited to see what you do next with figures interacting with each other, maybe, and with their backgrounds. So yeah, that's really cool.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions or comments? Well, Julie, thank you so much for coming and for talking about your art and for sharing your art and putting it out into the world. That's a brave and act in and of itself. And I absolutely love what you're doing. So
Great, thank you. And I'm grateful to, the people who showed up for the call, for that support and for your comments are very, very kind. And I appreciate you being here. And yeah, look forward to sharing more in the future.
all right. Well, if we have no other questions or comments, I'm going to go ahead and close this out for today. But thank you again to Julie. Thank you to everyone who's been here to support Julie in our gallery. Thank you to everyone who will be watching this later on YouTube, which I know is going to be the primary bulk of people. We know how this works. But it's been wonderful being here with you today, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.